age 73, is currently the longest serving incarcerated woman in Louisiana's prison system, sent to prison at the age of 25 for her involvement in a robbery. Someone in her group had a toy gun, and the owner of the store had a real gun. And in the struggle, he was shot, but not by Gloria. Nevertheless, she was sent to prison, where she has now spent over half a century. After 3 escape attempts shortly after she was sentenced to life in prison, during one of which she made it as far as Houston, things seemed to change for the woman now known as Mama Glow. She became a legendary role model. She is known not just, for her own children, her own 5 children as Mama Glow, but also for the hundreds and hundreds of younger women who she has mentored over more than half a century now in prison. In 2019, though, Mama Glow's family put together a clemency application. 30 people working together at the outset in support of her application to come home. But when that petition was heard, by that time, dozens packed the courtroom. This had become a groundswell of effort. In that hearing, in that courtroom, she actually met her grandchildren for the first time. And at that hearing, the Board of Pardons heard her petition and actually that same month granted her application, which is very, very rapid for a Board of Pardons application to be granted. She began planning her return home to her family. But here we are in 2021, and Mama Glow is still behind bars. She got COVID. She survived. She is waiting to come home, and her approved petition for clemency is sitting on the desk of Louisiana Governor John Bel Edwards this entire time. Advocates across the state have been tirelessly calling for him to just sign the petition, yet still nothing. Here to talk with us now about the fight for Mama Glow, the fight to bring her home, are Sybil Fox and Robert Richardson, the social justice activists known as Fox and Rob, who are fighting to bring Mama Glow home through the Mama Glow campaign. Fox and Rob, so great to have you here. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, Emily, it just absolutely warms my heart. Thank you for bringing her story to light in such a on such an amazing platform, such as the Appeal. Being formerly incarcerated citizens ourselves, it has been news instruments like now this and the Appeal that we have clung to let us know that we're not here fighting alone, that there are other people that believe that this system is wrong and it must be dismantled. So thank you so much for having us.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So let's start with your personal connection. Can each of you tell me how you came to know Mama Glow, how you became involved in her cause, and a little bit of the backstory?
I probably would start later in the future. My husband and I, for an offense we committed in 1997, found ourselves receiving the blunt of Louisiana's criminal justice system when my husband was sentenced to 60 years in prison as a first offender for a bank robbery. So we understood just how harshly our society can deal with us and value assets and goods more than human life itself. And so once we got clemency for my husband in 2018, we were the only family in Louisiana that was incarcerated who received clemency in 2018. And that is not a bragging right. That is really disparaging. And we say disparaging because we know that there are so many other deserving men and women like Mama Glow who deserve an opportunity to be heard from again. And when you keep someone to the extent of 30, 40, 50 years, really, what is the purpose of all of that? So in 2019, after he returned home, we decided that we would start implementing a model called participatory defense. It is a model after 35 other hubs across the country, started in Silicon Valley. And the model teaches families how to participate in their own defense. So what we had learned to do over 21 years of our incarceration while we worked toward clemency, we now teach others through PDM NOLA in the participatory defense model. As soon as we started our organization, we were just completing training. We get a phone call from another female organization I work with called The Graduates, formerly incarcerated women who have come home and performed our experiences through theater. called and said that Mama Glow, who I knew from being incarcerated at LCIW myself back in 2000, was up for a pardon and she needed our help. And so immediately she was the first campaign, the first work that we began to do as an organization. And that was to work with her family and the Promise of Justice Initiative and getting a favorable, that, like you said, that unlikely favorable recommendation unanimously from the Louisiana Board of Pardons. And now we wait on our governor to find that this is the right thing to do.
A super quick question about that, the petition itself, because like you mentioned, I mean, it is disgraceful how infrequently clemency is granted.
Yes.
Pretending like people haven't changed after 30, 40, 50 years contravenes everything we know about humans. But I will get off my soapbox to drill down on Mama Glow's petition, because that means it is such a rarity to have the Board of Pardons grant something and grant it really, really fast. Can you tell our audience a little bit about what was so compelling about Mama Glow's petition?
I mean, from the governor's office themselves have shared with us in our conversations with them that Mama Glow has been the most heard from clemency application that this administration has heard from, period. So it's not that we are not reaching the governor's office, but what it is taking, unfortunately, to penetrate through his spirit to make him understand that this is just the most humane thing to do. Not only did Mama Glow have COVID, not only is she's not 73, so we did want to correct that, Emily. She is 76 this year. She is the same exact age as my mother. And so that's why her campaign for freedom means something else to me, aside from meeting her and watching and hearing over space and time the women from the prison that she has mothered while leaving her 5 children orphaned. But she is my mother's age. And then she has done my life cycle behind bars. I'm 50 this year, and Mama Glow will be incarcerated 51 years this year. So just from a mother-daughter standpoint, there's emotional ties there. From being a clemency recipient and knowing that clemency works, it has worked for my family. My husband has been home almost 3 years now. And in the work that we're doing to help other families with PDM NOLA, we have saved almost 1,000 years of life behind bars for citizens in the city of New Orleans and the state of Louisiana. And I just don't believe that we're going to stop until she comes home, because it's just the humane thing to do.
So let's talk about the governor for a second. You know, Louisiana, of course, is not a super left-wing state, but the Governor John Bel Edwards, is a Democrat. He has supported criminal justice reform efforts. He won re-election despite an opponent who tried to paint his support for reform as negative. So he's actually been beat up on criminal legal reform and has stuck to it. Closer to home, Rob, the governor granted you clemency in 2018. What is going through his mind? I mean, we're talking about a 76-year-old woman who, as you said, had unprecedented public support. Why is he refusing to grant clemency to Mama Glow?
Wow, that's I'm speechless in terms of why. I mean, it just seems like, just on the face of the record by itself, a 76-year-old woman commits a crime that she has the least amount of culpability in terms of the 3 suspects that were involved in the crime. The gentleman that was involved in the crime received clemency under previous Edwards governor during
Edwin Edwards'
administration.
Because the gentleman, her co-defendant, was the governor's cook. Right. And he got clemency in the 80s, Emily.
And it's important to note too that women don't get the same opportunity as far as being able to work at the governor's mansion, or to be able to position themselves in a way to receive, I think, the favor or the recognition that a lot of their male counterparts have received. I noticed that when a lot of the women go up for clemency, oftentimes they don't have nearly the rehabilitative programming that a lot of the men have. And I think a lot of those things come into play, but it points out to how
disparaging,
different the situations are for women that are in prison and that men that are in prison. Oftentimes when men apply for pardon, they apply for pardon based upon merit. they've achieved or have succeeded exceedingly beyond the others in the inmate population, if you would. And with that being said, oftentimes they come to the light of day of those that are in a position to make a decision about them being able to receive pardon or parole. And oftentimes it's based upon merit, whereas in the women's situation, I think a lot of times it has to be based upon compassion. Why is it that our governor has not found enough compassion in his heart to grant Mama Glow's clemency at this particular point is mind-blowing. It's baffling.
And not even just Mama Glow. Our governor made a commitment to us, Emily, and said that he was going to have major criminal justice reforms when he was elected. And I was one of those families that deeply believed. I had been waiting, my family laying in the cusp of this system for over a decade at the time, a decade and a half. And so we believed in what he was saying to us. And when you look at the record, I think that our governor's a good man. I think he's a God-fearing man. But when you look at the record just doesn't lie. And our Democratic governor is not signing nearly the petitions, the clemency petitions of his Republican predecessors. And that's just really disheartening. It's like he gets his reputation like he signed a bunch or he's doing a bunch of work. But at the end of the day, when you pull it back and you look at the numbers, you move the smoke clouds and the frenzy in the media, and you look at the actual numbers, I don't know if we're much better off.
So absolutely on the numbers, but you both have also deep insight into the opportunities that are available. And you just brought up something that I hadn't necessarily planned to talk about, but it was quite striking. And I want to open up that conversation a little bit. Rob, as you pointed out, a clemency petition, I'm a former public defender, a clemency petition is at its most persuasive when you can say, look at these programs, look at these jobs this person's had. Here's photocopies of like 50 different certificates this person has earned. And so obviously, in order for a person to be able to have those achievements, programs, certificates, education, jobs, that all has to be available in the prison. Now, are you telling me that that is not available at the same level to women? And you also mentioned working in the governor's mansion. Women are also excluded from that kind of, can you just tell me what kind of an uphill battle women are facing in terms of not being afforded the same opportunities as men?
It's an arduous battle. The programs just do not exist. Not only do they not exist, but you have to even look at the fact that St. Gabriel Prison has been shut down for
3 years now.
now.
Since 2016 flood, the women of St. Gabriel have been dispersed.
They've been scattered out all across the state.
An old juvenile prison that they had closed down because of health concerns with the facility. And when the women's prison flooded, they moved the women there in the middle of the night and made them, in their wet, soggy clothes, clean up this abandoned prison that had been closed for 3 years. That is the level of treatment for women that are incarcerated. And Rob may not be able to answer it on the inside. I have lived there and I have seen how it is, how we treat the women. And then visiting my husband, I saw how he could get this programming, but the programming for women in the state of Louisiana is so limiting, it is almost non-existent.
Even with their legal cases, and often in a lot of situations, you would have women that would mail their legal documents to Angola for the purpose of men that were there in Angola to be able to shepherdize cases that they believe might be beneficial to something that they were seeking in the way of an appeal. Those programs exist in Angola. They have an extensive law library in Angola, and basically every other institution that I've ever been inside of in my journey to getting to Angola, meaning from the parish jail where I was housed to where I went to Hunts for processing into the DOC, even to the point of when I reached Angola, all the way through, there was always some type of legal person on deck that would be able to provide you with just some of the basic essentials necessary to shed light on your legal situation. The women just don't have those things available to them, and even more so now when you're talking about the fact that their main prison has been closed down for more than 3 years now.
It's just so shocking to me. First of all, I never thought anyone would tell me that Angola is better than anywhere. So like, the fact that we're in a world where we're
Right,
talking about Angola,
right.
it's just wild to me. It's also just thinking about the rate at which, women are mothers, women are in prison so often because of abuse they've suffered, so often domestic abuse or coercion. It's shocking to me that the state of Louisiana would so abandon its women. And I know that's not what this episode is about.
And take it even a little deeper than that, Emily, when you think about it. It's just not that these women are just women in the state of Louisiana. They're primarily women of color. And when you know anything about the African-American household, you know that statistics, not my words, say that 65% of all Black households are headed by women. They say that 85% of women serving time are mothers. So just think about the number of Black children that are without their mothers, like Mama Glow's 5 children that have spent 50 years without her.
Oh my God. So turning back to Mama Glow, of course she is unique and uniquely deserving of the governor's mercy. But I also want to point out, as you just pointed out, that she is so very much not alone, that you have prisons full of women, of mothers, of the heads of their households, of Black women in particular. I know Mama Glow has had a really big influence on the women around her. And I'm just wondering if you could talk about what she means to women, particularly women serving long sentences in Louisiana.
I think to me, Mama Glow initially, when you talk about her running away, that is rumored as to why we have heard that our governor has not signed her petition. And so when you think about slaves, because that's what we are when we are incarcerated in Louisiana or in our country, we, according to the 13th Amendment, we're slaves again. And so the thing that a slave master frowns upon the most is his slaves that try to run away. So I think that Mama Glow, just by her being willing to take responsibility, but also knowing that she didn't deserve a life sentence for the offense that had been committed. Truly, somebody had to pay. She had to pay for her role in it. But 51 years and you're 76 years old, how many more pints of blood would it say? How many more pounds of flesh do we need? And to what extent and cost to our taxpayers in Louisiana? So just the fact that she has been able to keep her mind in 51 years of incarceration, keep a loving relationship with her family that traveled 5 hours over 50 years to still come see about her, speaks volumes to the type of person that she is, because it takes a lot to maintain a relationship day to day with no inhibitions. So you can only imagine what 51 years can do to a family.
I'm almost at a loss. Thank you so much for joining us to talk about this important issue. Thank you for your work on behalf of this issue. I really hope we're going to be able to have you both back on the show with Mama Glow.
Yes.
We're going to have, I would like the next show to have her joining you in the free world here to talk about how she was released in the year 2021.
We're going to hold you to that.
It's a standing invitation, and I hope everyone around the governor and the governor himself is hearing this loud and clear. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you
again.
Well, this has me thinking about what it takes to survive. We just heard from Fox and Rob about Mama Glow, who was put in prison at the age of 25. In a state where Black and brown people are incarcerated at a rate that outstrips any other demographic, of course, extremely racially biased incarceration derived directly from a system in which the 13th Amendment was used to re-enslave Black and brown people in the South. And that system persists to this day. Black men and women, and now we're talking about women, mothers, 85% of the women in these prisons are mothers, incarcerated at a rate that outstrips any other state in America. And since America is the world's biggest jailer, that means Louisiana is outstripping every other place in the world in incarcerating its Black and brown people. Now, when I think about Mama Glow, I'm thinking about what Fox just mentioned about what she means to other women who look to her as an example of what it is to survive. to survive being taken away from your 5 children, to survive being put in a prison with no hope of ever coming back, to survive watching opportunities be given to men that are denied to women, women who are left in wet clothes to clean up a toxically shut down, abandoned jail facility that they're told they have to live in without any job opportunities or education or opportunities to transform, to survive COVID, to survive endless petition processes, to survive watching your co-defendant get out on his own clemency petition, to keep your faith even in spite of so much hopelessness and a lack of response from a governor whose platform suggests he should be willing to grant mercy here. And when I say mercy, I do mean mercy, but I'm also just talking about logic, because who are we as a society to incarcerate people pretending they have not changed over 50 years in prison? I don't have the years on me to think about who I was 50 years ago, but I can think about who I was 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, and I know I'm not the same person I was, and I know you're not either. Mm-hmm. It is strange to live in a world in which our criminal legal system pretends that people don't change. It is strange to live in a world when there's any controversy at all surrounding a request to release a 76-year-old woman whose survival has become a story of inspiration to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people across that state. This has been another episode of The Appeal Live. I'm Emily Galvin Almanza. Thank you so much for joining us.